Hey guys, it's TheSketchMonkey here and welcome back to a new video. And this one is all about the Porsche Macan. We're going to take the recently facelifted Macan and kind of facelift the facelift. So we're gonna jump into Photoshop and see what we come up with. So when Porsche first entered the SUV market with the Cayenne in 2002, there was a lot of mixed opinions about its design. Clearly, when a brand that's specialized in two-door rear-engine sports car for over 50 years decides to come out with something completely different in design and proportions, it's going to be a huge challenge to get it right the first time. Personally, I felt like the first generation Cayenne lacked any sort of identity. It didn't have any defining lines, and generally it just looked like a big blob, almost like a very bloated Porsche 911. What I admire with Porsche is their design evolution over time. Not just with the Cayenne, but with the Porsche 911 as well. It's all about refinement, small adjustments to get as close to perfection as possible, even though getting to perfection is impossible, since every year there's new technology coming into play that will be used in the next generation Porsche 911. So it's a never-ending chase, and that is what makes Porsche so great. With the Cayenne, I think this is a prime example of this Porsche mentality with evolution over revolution. But this video is not about the Cayenne, it's about its smaller sibling, the Macan. The design of the first generation Macan is a different story than with the Cayenne. You could tell that Porsche had over a decade of SUV experience when the Macan was introduced in 2014, since the Cayenne had been around for 12 years by that time. The design just feels well put together and confident, way more so than the Cayenne. It doesn't have to be based on the Porsche 911 anymore as the only inspiration, but instead it feels and looks like a smaller, tighter Cayenne. This of course also has to do with the fact that by 2014, people kind of were used to there being a Porsche SUV around, so the shock value was nowhere near what it was in 2002 when the Cayenne was introduced. So the Porsche Macan recently received a minor facelift, with the biggest visual change being the integration of the design feature of the decade, and that will be the full-length light bar in the rear. I think Porsche can kind of get away with this because they've been using these light bars with the 911, so it feels more natural on the Macan than it does on literally every single manufacturer out there that for some reason all decided to implement this design feature that is a light bar. I like the Porsche Macan. I prefer it over the Cayenne, mostly because of the smaller size, and I think it probably is a lot more fun to drive as well. I also prefer it over the Cayenne when it comes to design as well. I think the more rounded rear end suits the Porsche SUV format better, even though it kind of takes away from the luggage and space inside. So why would I redesign a Macan that was redesigned only about 6 months ago or a year ago? Well, I think the main idea for this redesign is to take some inspiration from the Porsche Taycan, which I love. I think the front end of that is going to be the new fascia for Porsche, especially with those slots or creases around the headlights. And if you've seen my redesigns before, you know that I'm a big fan of something called line continuity and kind of line flow in the design. So I wanted that slot to continue into the bumper and also create a more horizontal graphical feeling of the front end. And I do that especially by sharpening up the line where the hood ends and the grille continues. I wanted to have more definition in that line and also create more horizontal graphics in the lower part of the front. A lot of times when I do these redesigns, I like to add some sharpness to the overall body of the car. For example, the fenders and the door lines and the line that goes in the bottom of the door. But in this case, I think Porsche, they're not supposed to be sharp in certain areas. They're not supposed to have sharp fenders, and especially not the rear fender. That is always supposed to have a smooth curvature to it. So I tried to add some sharpness to it, but it just didn't feel right. So I deleted that. One thing that I did add was the sharpness in the front fender going from the corner where these two lines above the headlight meet, and just have a line that kind of starts sharp and then fades out into the fender as it stretches back to the side mirror. One thing I think Porsche got right with the Macan are the stock wheels from factory. I think pretty much all of them look great, not the 16 or 17, 18 inch, but the bigger size wheels. What I wanted to do here is keep the same design of these wheels because I think they look great. The only thing I want to change is to change the color of it and have it be more black or almost gunmetal or something like that, and of course have the calipers be red, because in this case we have a red interior, and I think it would look great if the interior of the car matches the calipers of the wheels. I've heard a bunch of different opinions about the Macan, as with pretty much any other car, but this Macan, the Porsche SUVs in general, they just seem to kind of polarize. Either you hate them or you love them. For the Macan, for example, I love this design, and there is a specific reason for this, and that is something I've been talking about before, and that is the fact that it doesn't have to be and look so aggressive, and that's something that I like with Porsche in general. For example, the 911 still looks pretty friendly, even though it's almost a supercar. It doesn't have to be aggressive looking, and they've kept that class in their design and their consistency throughout the years, and that is something that I personally appreciate. But I would love to hear what you think about the Macan. Are you a fan, or are you not a fan of the Porsche SUVs in general? So as we're coming to an end of this redesign, I'm very happy with how this turned out. I didn't want to have those creases or intakes or vents around the headlights be too pronounced, because that would be, first of all, a huge problem for the engineers, and they would go crazy if the designer showed them a design that was too crazy. I want it to feel like it could be a possible next generation Macan based on the Taycan design language, and especially the graphics in the front. I think I managed to get the general idea that I had with this redesign down in this redesign, which was to give the front fascia more of a few defining lines and create more structure in the front end of the Macan, but at the same time not deviate too much from what is already out there in the Macan. And that's it for this redesign. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed making it. Let me know what you think about this redesign. I'm TheSketchMonkey. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.